Babies and toddlers, toddlers and babies, cool custom apparel for the little ones. Hey friends, did you know that your friends over at Jack Prince can take care of your babies and toddlers? Let me clarify. They're not really going to take care of them, but they're going to take care of their apparel needs. But I'm sure you know some kids in your life, and I'm sure your clients would like to brand to some kids in your life, right? Have you thought about putting your design on clothing for everybody's favorite customer, the wee little ones? The holidays are coming. Why not think about branding custom onesies for the littlest of customers? What you're really doing is you're making the parents happy, right? Available in several colors by all style, able to fit that precious baby size in 100% cotton. Get your baby and toddler designs going today. Custom apparel for the little ones by Jack Prince. Screen print your design for a baby today, because you know who loves screen printing? Babies. Available at jackprince.com. Save on industry low prices by going to jackprince.com/circle of trust. No shipping to these United States. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. It is Comment Below. On the show today, what? No. The little man that crawled out of the sea, crawled back into the sea. That's right. Sean is in Hamburg, and if you think about all the depressing things in the world, Germany and Mort, could there be a worse time to be alive? But on the show today, have no fear. It is from the gay stuff in it.
Connie.
There's gay stuff in this podcast today, so we technically, Comment Below, Adventures in Design, can be on Is There Gay Stuff in It, because there's gay stuff in this episode today. Connie, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back. It's been a really long time, and I've been looking forward to this, hoping you'd find a spot to slide me into here. And you'll always be able to be on Is There Gay Stuff in It, Mark.
I would love to.
Yeah, you get adjacent gay status for that, so we'll add you in there sometime.
Thank you. I would love to. I love gay stuff. Every neighborhood I moved to is a gay neighborhood, and I had to explain to my dad, I'm like, it's just where I like to live. I'm not making a big announcement yet, Dad. Although, on Fridays they have this theory that I'm going to be one of those second half gay type of guys, that at some moment, our roommate Todd, I have to make an announcement to Beth, look, we're just living in Palm Springs. It's just the way it is. Deal with it.
Well, polyamory is the thing these days. So you and Beth can just slide right in there with a new friend.
New friend, a new trend. We're always on the edge of things. Connie, it is the end of September, which it's gone very, very fast. September is the foreplay of months, right? Like you just feel somebody, to quote George Takei, tickling my tits. And you just feel that September's great, but the good stuff is just getting ready to come. Next month, October, one of the absolute best months ever. We're getting into football now makes sense. We know who's real. We know who's fake. We know which teams are there to play, which teams we can already give up on. Like the Buffalo Bills, where a player said, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to go ahead and retire at halftime.
Man, I had to send that text to you about that as soon as it happened, because we used to have that fella on the Dolphins, and then you guys got him up there, and yeah, he just said, halftime, fuck it, man. What am I doing? I'm in Buffalo, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, this team sucks. Number three, I'm out, guys.
To retire at halftime, just when you thought the Bills couldn't go any lower, that is a new low in NFL history.
Well, if it's got to be the low, it would happen in Buffalo or Miami. So
yeah, there we go. That's our common bond. But no, we're settling in, and where we're at with TV is we've seen some of the early shows come out, and there's more to come. But I have to tell you, as much as I love the fall and I love all the new TV, I love the sports coming back, the weather changing, Disneyland turns into a Halloween palace. So far, the new TV hasn't really kicked me in the dick like I would love for it to. Like, I'm a little bit mediocre on it. And the only thing that I've really gotten into, and this, pilot episode, strong. So much love, so much TLC goes into the pilot episode. But the second episode of Mayans MC, Oh, the distance between the two was great. The first one, I'm like, this feels like I'm watching Sons of Anarchy, one of my all-time favorite shows. Not a good show, but a favorite show. The pilot episode, I felt really like this feels so familiar. There was a couple familiar faces that popped in it. And then the second episode, I'm going to hope it was a bad director. And as big TV fans know, you take a 12 episode season, you got a different director, doing multiple episodes. So they can feel a little bit different. So I'm going to hope that when I pull off number 3 on my DVR, that I'm in a sweet space. But man, that second one was rough. And I always hate the fall off from a great pilot.
Yeah, I always warn people because, I make a lot of TV recommendations and I say, hey, the first one's rough. It's a pilot. If you don't know that, they've got a lot to accomplish. They got to establish characters, setting, tone, get you enough information to keep you interested, but pack it all into usually an hour time. So the pilot it doesn't make or break a show for me, but for a lot of people, they'll always say, oh, I watched the first one and I couldn't get into it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, then you're not a TV fan. You got to come back.
Right.
I have not watched Mayans, but what I heard from you just now is the same thing that I heard from 2 or 3 other trusted TV buddies, that the first one they weren't sure, and then the second one they were like, fuck, what am I watching? This is going to be cool. So I'm going to let maybe a couple more of those build up, because as I've becoming busier and busier with a lot of stuff that's going on with me, I'm having to block things off a little bit instead of just keeping up like I used to.
Yeah, well, for me, it's always, I like to let things pile up and then jump in. And just to clarify, I know exactly what you're saying, that a lot of pilots, they're kind of trying to figure out what they're doing. They're setting the tempo. And when you watch the second episode, it's almost like you can see the studio notes, right. Pull back on this guy. She's a star. Let's abandon this. You can almost see the correction. But sometimes the opposite happens, where they have months to make the pilot. Pilot
right.
gets approved. They went over it meticulously because the pilot is getting the job. It's proven to the client, which is the network, that you're worthy of, millions of dollars per episode. And then
that's what I was going to say is, in the pilot, do you think that they're doing what I heard Tarantino does with movies when he's submitting them to the board of review for their rating, is he puts in a lot of shit that's really extreme so that he can keep the bits he really wants. He'll give them something, like give them one they can complain about and get rid of. So I wonder if in the pilots, if they're like, we're going to float all of these different things in here because we're willing to lose some, and some things we're really wanting to push forward, because it seems like they pack a lot in there.
Yeah, I've heard that strategy before, and it works in the world of art and design, where you go beyond what you think will get approved. So there's a couple of freebies in there for negotiation, like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll take out that gratuitous thing. But basically what you're hoping for is the moment that they whittle you back to is what you really wanted to go out. But sometimes the pilot can just be so good because they had the time to craft it. And it's like watching, a 60-minute plus movie. And then that second episode, because it had to come out fast and furious, you see some of the TLC sort of wear away, and that the first episode of Mayans, I thought it was good. It felt like Sons of Anarchy. And the second one, there was really cheesy jokes. It just, I don't know. It felt like a bit of a parody, like, oh, I hate when the car catches on fire and somebody goes, that guy's hot stuff. You know what I mean? Like those type of moments. And that exactly didn't happen, but there was those cringy moments where you're like, oh, really? That's where the writing's going to go on this. So we'll see. But really, so far in the month of September, that was the one that I dove right into because I was a huge Sons of Anarchy fan, and Sons of Anarchy was perfectly lined with my love of fall. It was just like, that was one of those cues that when Sons were back, the good time of year was too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that's kind of missing for me with TV. When we were kids and growing up, and until fairly recently, you could set your year clock by TV.
Yep.
Late August, early September, the new fall shows were going to start, or your favorites were going to come back. They were going to run through, and you were going to get a holiday episode, Thanksgiving episodes, and then a break. And then they started back up January and ran through when you got out of school. And then, you had your summer for whatever. And now it's like, it could be a full-time job. Like if there was a full-time job where I could get paid to just watch TV all year long, I don't need another job because now I've got too many. But that would be great because you've got summer stuff coming in. You've got Netflix shows, which are all over the calendar as for who knows when something's coming back. And then you have things like HBO's Westworld and Game of Thrones, who you cannot set your clock to those things at all. So TV is kind of all over. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's definitely wandering into a weird moment where one thing that I know as a human being, that even when you're the freest of free, even when your job is like mine and it's completely make-believe, we all love routine and we all love schedule. And the schedule of TV has been broken in a way where you feel like there's always something being like, hey, pay attention to me over here. I'm new and shiny. And when you add in the idea of video on demand, the YouTube, or I'm sorry, the Hulus and the Netflixes, and then you add in the noise of the internet. If you fall in love with a couple of YouTube creators, now you have that constant drip of the good stuff coming at you. And so with TV being so disruptive in its own, where, when that Game of Thrones finally comes back, that's going to be an epic must-see moment. That's going to bring people back to Monday morning having a common thing to talk about. It's going to be hard to find somebody who's like, I'm going to catch up on all of them when it's over. And I look forward to those moments when we all jump in. I mean, I schedule my TV watch around what don't I want to get spoiled. So for me, Tuesday morning, I'm firing up Better Call Saul from the Monday night before because I just don't want any of that Vince Gilligan magic ruined by an article. And being on the West Coast, the way these fucking networks encourage people to live tweet, it's like 3 hours later, a lot of your customers haven't even seen this yet. Like, careful. I know you want people to talk about it because it's free promotion, but come on, careful with the spoilers.
Yeah, I had to condition myself with a lot of shows that if it mattered to me and I was going to have to miss it for some reason, stay the hell off the internet tonight, Connie. Do not get on there. Put that phone over in some other room because a lot of things were spoiled. Walking Dead, back when I still watched it.
Are you done?
I think I'm done with it. I recently discussed this on my podcast. That,
by the way, Connie has a podcast now called "Is There Gay Stuff in It?" If my opening didn't make sense to you, I was not profiling today's guest. She literally has gone out of her way to create a podcast for her community that lets you know if you watch this, there's gay stuff inside.
So I recently discussed. It wasn't intended to be our topic, but we ended up wondering if putting more lesbians on The Walking Dead couldn't save it, because that's the only thing that would keep me interested in it at this point, because they've taken so many characters that we loved away too quickly, dropped in too many people that we don't give a shit about. The characters crossing over back and forth between other shows. People keep telling me you'll love Fear the Walking Dead, but I almost feel like that one's gotten too far away for me to go back in. But hell, I've lost my train of thought on what we were even talking about now.
Well, adventures and distractions. Here's The Walking Dead. I got a couple bones to pick.
Pick them.
One, the announcement that Rick Grimes is leaving, and now it's Rick Grimes' final episodes. It would have been so much better if you're just watching it one night, Rick gets into a pickle, and then he just casually gets bit in the neck. Like, it would be whatever they've got planned, they lost all the thunder from what they would have had. Now, Fear the Walking Dead. This was a chance to remake some of their wrongs. I've never seen a show that suffered from worse pacing in all of my TV watching career. The pacing of it, they couldn't get to the zombie apocalypse fast enough. Like, they just flew through it in season 1, which I thought, if I was in charge of that show, you wouldn't even see a zombie till the end. Like
last episode, first season.
Yes.
For me. Yeah.
Let it just let you know that there's something weird going on in the world. And now we're only into the second part of season 4. There's hardly anyone that resembles the beginning of that show. Like, there's, that I can think of, 2 characters left from season 1. That's a hell of a giveaway. And that's basically telling the audience, we know that we fucked up. That's why we got rid of everybody.
And spoiler alert, but aren't some of the Walking Dead people now crossing over into Fear the Walking Dead?
So the only character that we've seen so far bridge the gap is one of the best characters of all time, Morgan.
Yes.
And so Morgan is now in this other show, but he's trying to get his band of merry men back over to the East Coast, back to Virginia. And you wonder, well, now that we're seeing same people, and now that we know that the timelines are pretty close, what's the point of this second show? There's no longer a point for it. Like if it was a prequel or a sequel or had some sort of different angle on that universe, it would make sense. Now it's just the same show with people that you care about less.
Yeah, it's not like what they did with Lost, where I was knocked over the episode when we were watching a show and we think we're watching the past, but then we're watching after they're back, in that season 3.
That was the moment.
Which a show that I was starting to go, are they making this up weekly as they go here in the writer's room? And then I was like, holy fuck, they had a plan the whole time, and now I'm in to the end. I don't care what happens. And maybe that's what they were thinking with this, but it doesn't sound like they're getting it.
No, it's real mixed up. So, but that used to be a show where I watched it as quickly as I could to release because I didn't want to learn. I didn't want Beth to be like, is some guy named what was his name that we thought that all died? The Asian feller. Glenn.
Glenn.
Yeah. Beth was like, some guy named Glenn important? Like, is he dead or whatever? I'm like, oh, what? You don't even know about Walking Dead. Why are you talking about it? But TV's in a weird spot because they're trying very hard to keep up with the pace. Like all the networks, are trying hard to keep up with what's going on with the world of the Netflix. Hey friends, we'll get right back to comment below right after this. I want to give you a quick heads up. This is why the ad is a little bit early in today's episode. I did today's episode on codeine. I had a lot of dental work done and I didn't want to say anything in the recording, but now listening back, I'm a little spun out in a couple of spots because of the pain medication that I'm on. So me and Post Malone living our lives on codeine. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I tell you what you're going to do. You're going to want to listen to, the entire show because apparently I'm high. But in part 2, we have an extended 90-minute Circle of Trust where Connie has gotten into making her own content, right? She's become a podcaster much like myself. And I'd really encourage you, even if your goal isn't to do it full-time like myself or as a very hardcore hobby like Connie, get into the world of content creation, learning how to tell your story, whether it's through making more planned out content for Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, or creating a YouTube channel or your own podcast. Any way that you can further the way that you tell your story and create a connection with the people that follow or support your career, it's 110% a great thing to go down. So many people these days, they live anonymously. I said it better than the president. They're worried about getting in front of the camera, worried about getting in front of the microphone. Those that do are rewarded. The bond that I've been able to make with my audience is the best thing I've ever achieved in my career. In part 2, we talk all about that today. Connie talks about what she learned in making the first season of her podcast. Is there gay stuff in it? And I talk all about what I've learned as a content creator. It's a solid 90 minutes of her and I going back and forth, talking about the art of getting on the other side of the camera or the microphone. We also give an update on Print Mafia. There's a lot in there. It's a quality 90 minutes of hanging out. And that's just what you get today. Every single day you get bonus content. You also get the archive of over 800 episodes that each give a little bit of insight in how to build whatever it is that you're trying to build. I work hard, 200 episodes a year, bringing you interviews from the most creative minds that I can find. And in the way that we do AID, it's a casual conversation. People let their guard down and they let the information out. Sign up today at AIDpodcast.com. Become a member of the Circle of Trust. Let's get back into comment below with Connie and me on codeine. A very, very, very low dosage. Super, super low dosage. But the Netflixes have even gotten into an interesting spot where, I feel like months will go by to where there's not like a solid show that gets dropped. You're like, well, you're supposed to be this always something to watch, but it's now been weeks since you've dropped a quality series on me. So even the VOD fellas pay attention to us, the listeners, the viewers. And this is what I've done with my podcast is I've figured out there's moments when everybody knows nobody's paying attention.
Right.
don't work hard during those months because you'll just be working hard for the sake of working hard. If Netflix is pulling back, Hulu's pulling back, Prime's pulling back, and Network's pulling back, that's a pretty good indication that everybody's off in la la land, which even if you're just a guy or a gal that has a web store, you probably don't want to go hard when the networks aren't going hard. Like there's a way that you can follow, you can kind of follow the trends and understand when more people are paying attention and when more people aren't. And the reason why movies are on a completely different schedule than the rest of, video content is because the movie is an event. They need people to be off in La La Land to be dedicated to show up and to go to a physical location. And so a movie's more of a recreational thing where TV is more of a life hack of escapism inside of a very busy day that you have. That's a big lesson that I've learned from watching the trends.
Yeah, I will notice that Netflix, I'll look at it and there's nothing new popping up on my open screen or my suggested or anything, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 there'll be a bunch at the same time when my Hulu shows have come back or something else that I'm watching. And for me, I'm a different customer than the average person because I work with TV.
Yeah.
And you do too. So
yeah.
I sometimes can be the most productive when I'm getting hit with the most new content for viewing because I tie the two things together, sitting down at the computer with some busy work to do that I don't have to keep an eye completely on and a show that I don't have to keep an eye completely on. But then there's the shows like you brought up Better Call Saul earlier. I'm behind on that one because I've been in a really intense work period for a while. And that's a show that I want to savor every visual of it, every move, every word. And if I don't, especially the words, you get lost on that show. So that's one that I'm going to have to transition into my nighttime viewing, which is I watch a lot of TV like when I'm trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I'll just block out 2 or 3 hours that it's like, okay, I'm going to shut this all down and go watch these particular shows. And so that's where I'm at with that is I don't follow those trends. So sometimes that gets frustrating for me when there's not new content on the streaming stuff.
You talk about the watch while you work, and I have an iPad that's just dedicated to just watching TV on it. And my iMac sits up on a riser so that I'm looking more upright than, looking down. So at the bottom of that riser, right where the Apple logo goes, I have an iPad mini that's tied into my audio interface. So it's literally like I can watch video, but I don't have to worry about the processor speed of my computer. If I'm rendering something up on the iMac, this video is running on its own flow. It's in an independent hard drive. And it's also, this is very important, it's its own volume, right?
Yes.
So I can have video running and be editing audio in a different source because the stopping and starting, it's 2 different portals. I don't even know how I used to do it on one device.
Yeah, if the listeners could see my setup right now, I've got one iMac to my left, and then across my desk on the other corner is another one. And then sitting right in the center of that is my 50-inch TV across the room. So I've just got 3 screens, like a Cineplex going here. and then I also have my audio interface, which I will put on to listen to something on the other computer in the headphones and be right up in it. But the best thing that's happened to me for TV watching and working is my wife bought me something that I just was kicking and screaming that I didn't want, which were the AirPods. I was like,
Great.
I'm going to lose these things. They're going to get all mangled. I don't want another thing in my pocket. I'm fine listening to TV the way I've done it for 48 years. Leave me alone. She bought me those things. I put them in. The first time I synced them up to my Apple TV and could walk from another room and still keep my head in my show. I'm doing shipping in the den. I'm coming back in here and get the orders, whatever I'm doing. I'm all around the house and paying attention to no one else in my life at all.
The most hardcore media move that I have is that when I'm on a plane, I have my earpods in, and then I put Beats over the top of them. So I can listen to one thing, but I'm editing AID. AID is the big headphones. Whatever media I'm consuming is in the little headphones. So therefore, if the audio needs to start and stop on the podcast episode that I'm editing, that just kind of comes in and then it goes away. But the AirPods is like a constant stream of the 11th Hour with Brian Williams or whatever Stern show that I'm into. So I I live in a moment now of like multiple headphones, and I probably spend, if I'm up 16 hours a day, conservatively 10 to 12 of those hours there's headphones on these ears, and not loud. I don't like stuff loud. I just like it in my ears.
I'm going to try that because I'm trying to imagine what those different layers and levels of sound are going on in your head. I'm going to have to give that a go and see.
It works out if you're editing audio, because you can have, the audio can just kind of come in because you just want to turn up the ending. And you don't want to have to stop the other thing that you're listening to. So it's just kind of an easy thing to do. I'm not saying it's right for everybody. It's the system that I've adopted. Connie, I have a couple questions for you.
Yep.
I don't think that there was probably ever a bigger colossal failure of a season on a show that was good than Orange is the New Black.
You're talking about this most recent season?
I'm talking about the season before. I'm talking about the 2017 season.
Oh, the riot in the Litchfield prison season.
Yeah, where they literally took out the whole narrative of, why we watch prison stuff is because what would it be like to live the life of restraint? They took out the most important part of a prison show. They took out the fucking cops or the prison guards. Like, that needs to be in there. And so I made it further than most people do because I'm a completist. But a lot of people watch 1 or 2 episodes. Now, I know because you've sworn an oath to gay media, you had to watch the 2018 season. Is it worthy to go back and revisit, or did you only do it because you swore an oath to gay media?
Well, there's a lot of ladies I like on that show.
I know you have a lady boner the whole time that you watch it. I understand this.
It was a bad season. I will tell you, it was my least favorite season.
2017.
Yes.
Okay.
But I know what they were thinking. They blew the show up to start over this season, and they had to do it. They went a little far. They did too much. Like you said, changing the show so radically. We had a lot of characters that did not see each other in the whole proximity of this prison riot that was going on. A lot of people that we were sympathetic to, favorite characters, were already gone, and they alienated a lot of their audience.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, and I don't know that it's even a popular opinion, it was worth it because of this season that happened. We're out of, how many more seasons could we have had of all those same women in the same prison with the same dynamics?
Yeah.
I think they knew that was coming to a close. So blow it up, kill it, make a riot, make it to where the prison had to be separated and the prisoners shipped off to different places. And then this season they dropped us, spoiler alert, dropped us back into, they had taken the ladies to the maximum security,
right.
which is a whole other world of prison shows.
Right.
So if you've watched, sort of an Oz or another women's prison show called Wentworth, it's a different thing than that little camp life those ladies had.
Right.
So to get to something, I think to save the show or at least get it through another couple seasons, they had to blow it up. So I'll agree with you. The season was horrible before, but I really enjoyed this new one.
Okay. So would you recommend to come back to it if you left?
I would say that you could almost come back into this season and not have to finish out the last season and know exactly what's going on and be fine.
Well, that's good because 2017 season was going nowhere. I literally looked over at Beth one night. She's on her laptop. I'm on my laptop. We've had 2 episodes going, and I just looked over and go, hey, let me ask you a question. What's the point of all this? Like all these characters, what are they trying to achieve? What's the big narrative here? Like, what are we working toward? What's the resolve that we're hoping for? And we're just like, there is none. This is the most, other than the fact that you like some of these characters, and even the characters were being, I don't know, they were being caricatures of themselves. Like, yeah, we just quit. And it's really hard for me to quit in the middle of something. But when I saw it come back on, I go, man, I know it's going to be a hard sell to get Beth to flip that back on, which is wild because it was one of my best wife watchers. She really, really liked it. I could get her to commit to it.
Yeah, I could never get Stacey to commit to this one. She had no time for energy for any of these people in this show. She hated it.
Yeah.
Part of that was because she had read the book that it was based on and did not like the title main character from that, which I separate all that. I mean, I don't read books, so I watch books on TV. So I think you could bring her back in if you tell her that I am giving it a good, hard recommendation to drop back in on because we are dropped into fresh circumstances, new guards, new inmates, a more structured prison situation, And one of the best all-time characters I've ever seen on TV is brought into this season.
Okay. I'm in.
So
that's all I need to know from you. I'm in. I tell you another Netflix show that I gave up on, and a lot of the audience told me, Brickey, too soon. I thought that the second season of Glow was shaping up to be another pile of shit because they were making this horrible mistake where, once again, I didn't know what we were fighting for, what we're trying to do. The season 1 of Glow is great.
Fantastic.
It's great. It's female empowerment, but it's also the outsiders. You know, like, we're a band of misfits. We're working together. We're broken as individuals, but together we make something whole, and we're going to try to fight through and make this thing, which is Glorious Ladies of Wrestling.
And the season 1 did another thing, which is very hard for shows to do: accurately capture a period without going over the top, or not paying enough attention. Just saying, well, we're going to set this in the 80s, and okay, so we're going to play some weird music, and everybody's going to have a bright colors and a swatch on. Yeah. No, that doesn't do it for this. Down to the cars, the tennis shoes, the restaurants they're at, their houses, is as much detail as Mad Men, which, you know, is the epitome of that. Also, the band of outsiders and being, you know, hitting at just the right time with the feminism and feminists due to our presidential situation rising up, captured all of that really well. We already knew that some of those characters in the first season battled against each other, kind of came together, and then why do we split them back up in second season?
I don't know. And then in the second season, I gave up after 3 episodes because I was realizing this trend. Every episode, there was a reason for all the girls to get together and do something zany. And then there'd be a montage, whether it was shooting the PSA, which the PSA was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. But before that, there was all of them at the mall. And then there was another one when they would go crazy with whatever sort of shenanigans that they had together. And I was like, this is dumb. Like, this has literally become TV for dumb people. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what the struggle is. And I just said, I'm out, which sucks because, forgive me for not knowing the lead actress's name who was in Mad Men.
Alison Brie.
She's fantastic.
She is. And
she physically changed herself for that role. You know what I mean? Like, she got very fit. You could tell how much her as a person was dedicated to this role. And I appreciate that when you see somebody do that. And then the blonde-haired villain.
Betty Gilpin.
Yeah. What else was she in? She was in something else.
Nurse Jackie.
Yes, Nurse Jackie. She played the most hateable doctor that they ever had. Although the older doctor that ended up having, like, she was the fancy doctor that always had the money that kind of helped out Jackie's family.
The British lady. Yeah.
Smoking hot.
Oh my God.
One of the sexiest women ever.
Yeah. That show had it all for me because I love Edie Falco. I loved Merritt Weaver is one of my all-time favorites. She played Zoe.
Yes. She's great.
Yes. She is great. She's great in everything that she's in. And then that doctor, although I don't know her name or whatever, I looked forward to everything with her. She was like a 70s sexy Jacqueline Bisset.
Yeah.
You know, kind of lady who was also like rich and a doctor.
Proper and in control. Like,
she liked to drink at lunch and do all that stuff that, you know, we think like sophisticated, sexy ladies do.
Yeah. Nobody was going to tell her what to do until she wanted to do it. And there's just something sexy about that. You know, she was nobody's fool, but was willing to fool around, if that makes sense.
And she had a soft heart for Jackie, who was a total fuck up.
Yes.
On that.
Great show.
Nurse Jackie is a great show. It gave me such fits because when a show has a character that you're supposed to, you know, follow through the whole show and they give you very few reasons to continue to like them.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. And that's, I think, like part of the beauty of that show is we were rooting for Jackie right up to the end of that show, and I still don't know how I feel about the end of it. It was a show that I had to put on the shelf sometimes and go, I don't know, I got to put this away, I got to think about it and come back to it. And that's one that's over, and that if somebody's got a little block of time to fill, I recommend it. And yes, Betty Gilpin was in that, and she plays Liberty Bell, the foil for Alison Brie in Glow. And they have a history on the show, and that's what I was saying earlier. Is, you know, the first season they come together and overcome these issues and realize that they can be stronger together. And then for some reason, in the second season, everybody just starts acting out of character.
Yeah.
On the show, and I mean, she was still great. They were both still great in it, but along with, like you said, every episode seeming like a shenanigans-filled half hour where the girls get into some wacky scheme. It's not what that show was.
Yeah.
So I also feel like maybe they didn't know if they were going to be renewed.
Yes.
So maybe they were trying to make it episodic, and then when the ending came up, and spoiler alert, we were left wondering what was going to happen on a new adventure for the whole women's wrestling team. I felt like they would thought, oh, we'll be okay if this was the ending. People will be fine with this if we don't know what happens to them and they're just off to this new adventure. And it took Netflix a while to renew that show. We've gotten used to Netflix shows getting renewal for a new season after 1, 2, 3 episodes, and this one was like 4 or 5 weeks after it ended.
Yeah, it's weird. Netflix, and I'm seeing the same trend with FX, which is my favorite, non-premium cable network. FX really waited until this week to announce that they're going to bring back Snowfall for a 3rd season, and this week is the season finale. It'll air tonight opposite of Jets Browns, and Snowfall is a great show. I love shows that document illegal business. Yep. I find something fascinating in people that could be CEOs in the straight world, but they just have a sweet tooth for the life of crime. I also love the empowerment of drugs. I love the idea that the ghetto that was designed to keep people down, there was also a way of empowerment designed in it by breaking the law. I love sort of the complexity of, well, damn, people can't afford cocaine in the ghetto. So this kid figures out how to make crack, which makes cocaine very, very affordable. And in his mind, he has separated the social and cultural damage that he's doing because he sees this as like, the world doesn't give a shit about me. This is my way to form a business. And so it's very interesting how the lead character, Franklin, has been able to divide the two. It also had some troubles with the season 1. John Singleton, who directed one of my all-time favorite movies, Boys in the Hood, was able to focus in and make season 2 a little bit more of a straight line. Also, worthy of noting, FX has given all their shows the green light to use the word fuck, which makes the shows feel way more realistic because people are now talking on FX like they talk in the real world.
Exactly. Like, remember when we were shocked to hear shit
Yes.
and ass,
Yes.
and now we're getting the fucks dropped? That's great. I think the reason that you're drawn to those kind of shows, and that I am also, because you said a thing there, a line like, the world doesn't give a fuck about me, let me see what I can do. That's kind of been your career.
Yes.
And kind of been mine also. Like, we might have had, we have like way more, I think, understanding and aptitude for making something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what those kind of shows are about, like figuring out how to survive in whatever fucked up Kentucky situation you were born into.
Right.
And figure out what works for you and how you can sell it, or if you can just be the seller. And that's what a lot of those are like.
Well, and if it's been hard for me, it's been really hard for you because you're the triple threat. Not only you're an outsider, but you're a woman, which I didn't realize how hard that was until I went into business with my wife and I realized how people treat women in the workplace. That was shocking to me. And you've got the gayness, which I also didn't realize how complex that was until you guys allowed me to be the minister for your wedding. And you shared with me the complexities of getting married. And you gave me one of the greatest gifts a public speaker could ever have. Forgive me for not knowing this, but you guys got married on your 20th or 25th anniversary of 25th anniversary of dating. Now, when you give a halfway decent public speaker the opportunity to share with people that not only are we here today to celebrate the love of Connie and Stacy, not only are we here to separate the union, but we're here to celebrate,
separate it.
A love that was so ahead of its time that it took 25 years for the Commonwealth of Kentucky to catch up with what these two knew in their heart 25 years ago today when they first met. Woo! Not a dry eye in the room. You gave me my best public speaking gig of all time because it was all stacked in my favor.
Yeah, I think we went out to that little diner here in town, Judy's Castle.
Yeah.
No Hassle at the Castle.
Ooh, I love that castle.
we told you, you said, what do you want me to do? Or what do you want me to say? And I was like, I mean, why are you asking me? Just say what you want. You know us. You know the whole situation. And yeah, you killed it. You had him crying and dabbing and snotting up all over the house.
And unfortunately, because the artist Little Tuffy looks just like me, most people complimented him throughout the night and not me. People were going up to him all night and be like, you killed it tonight with marrying him. And he's just like, thanks. He just man. Like took it and ran. So
thanks. It was a great honor.
But no, I mean, I understand that for people like us, though, that are the outsiders, that I think that those shows, you know, whether it's The Sopranos or The Wire or, you know, even The Deuce that came back to HBO for its sophomore season, I think there's something about the come up struggle that we love so much. And when I look at my two favorite genres of music, you know, hardcore and punk is all about the outside and the come up. And so is hip hop. You know, the two couldn't be any closer, even though the distance between them is vast. And I think that there's something that we all like. Part of the escapism of these shows is that it maybe validates that our crazy idea of being the first ever professional podcaster that's not a celebrity, that it's real. And you watch all these people and it's sort of like, you know, yeah, they're selling drugs, or yeah, they're in an arms deal, or yeah, they're, you know, a crooked cop. But the struggle for like personal creativity or personal achievement, that's the part that resonates with you if you're smart.
Yeah. And for me, it was saying, okay, I've had a career being a creative for 20 years, solid, and it's been very fulfilling. Can I do that for 20 more?
Right.
And will I want to be where I'm at with that, and kind of putting a screeching halt on it and saying, no, I'm going to go over here and do this, and I feel like I can make it work. And then 2 years after that saying, you know what, I've had a really good experience at a convention of like-minded people like myself, and I think that I can do something else, which is teach myself how to podcast in a weekend.
Yeah.
which was a crazy adventure that you helped me a lot with, and I'm sure we'll discuss more in this episode. But to just, I don't know what gives both you and I the ability to say, I feel okay doing this. Scary as shit, but I've done worse before and I failed, and I failed. So what? So I'm still going to keep trying it.
When you say failed, you're talking about Print Mafia?
I'm talking about Print Mafia is not a failure for me, but it had its failures,
right? As
you know. But like we discussed on the failure tour, a failure, we always learn from our failures.
Sure.
So I don't count them as failures. But to say that, you know, there's nothing that can happen to me in all of this that's going to be the end.
Right.
Like I'll reinvent, I'll do something else. And that took that 20 years of doing all of that work to come to that within myself.
Right.
That I feel that confident in myself.
And if you think about it, within that 20 years, there's just hundreds of these capsules of this escapism of TV while you're packing the orders, rolling the tubes, putting the pins in the envelope, thinking about what the next gig is. Like, you know, for me, TV is I call it the mental commute. I watch an hour every morning because it warms up my brain to go then do the type of work that I have to do. I can't roll out of bed. I mean, I know for a lot of people, going to work is putting on the work boots, showing up at the site and driving the fucking, you know, nail with a hammer. But for me, it's all mental, it's all creative, it's all personality driven, and I got to warm that up, you know, like, so the TV for me is literally the stretching before you go jog. But when you think about on that 20-year journey that you've been on, how many times was that day's TV episode or episodes sort of the validation that you might be able to make it because these crazy characters have made it too?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably, if you picked certain shows or certain events, vice versa, that happened in the Print Mafia career, I could trace it back to something that tied it in with television for me.
Yeah.
One that off the top of my head was Jim and I had several incarnations of a website leading up to our first like professionally built site that I was kind of in charge of getting everything going with that. And it just happened to coincide where I needed to have a solid like weekend of sitting down and working. It was the middle of the summer. I think it was a 4th of July weekend. We were topping like temperatures of 106 degrees here in Bowling Green. And I had restarted Mad Men to sit down and keep me company that weekend. And Stacy walked through the room and she was like, "Oh, you did the new season?" I was like, no, I'm rewatching the first one. She said, "Where are you at?" I'm like, "Second episode." She's like, "I want to watch it too. Start it over." So I was like, "Sure, I'll rewatch this first episode. It's a genius."
Yeah.
You know, we started that over, and then she and I marathoned that first episode in this one little room in this den with the window air conditioner just blowing us away, and the heat of the summer like beating in through the windows. And we're like, we're not going outside.
Yeah.
And it was just a little capsule of I was working, she was watching this show. It's time we spent together, and it was at that same time, you know, a new era for Print Mafia going with this website and these things that we were going to do. So I can sit here in this same room and remember that feeling from that weekend.
I can remember when the economy in the world was melting down financially. I remember watching that 4th or 5th season of Friday Night Lights and just being like, "Come on, coach, I need a speech this week. Like, I need you to pick up the team." And because I know you're talking about trying to mold these boys into men on the football field, but I'm in the weeds. I don't know what to do next. I feel like every bit of my life is melting and burning down. And I know you're a fictional character, but those words come from someone real. You know, they come from some sort of life lesson that somebody went through or heard from somebody else or read in a book or watched in a movie to put down on the page. Before we get into our Circle of Trust content, where I want to, you know, every week on Comment Below, I talk about me and sort of becoming a creator. You know, the first half is entertainment magazine where we fan out. And then the second half is variety, where we look at it from inside the industry. So before I talk to you about starting, is there gay stuff in it available on all formats of where you can find podcasts, and talk about me and the YouTube evolution. But before we get into that and make a big Print Mafia announcement, you bring up Mad Men. Do you think that we are over the renaissance of TV and the renaissance of TV getting really good? I'll give you my idea of what it is so that you know how to answer this and so we know how to talk about it and so the person at home knows what I'm talking about. I feel like the renaissance of TV started with The Sopranos. And I feel like shows like The Wire and Mad Men took it the distance. And there were the Breaking Bads. There were a lot of shows that it's almost like creators were waiting for this moment in time to get the budget, the creative space, and have an audience that was willing to go on these epic journeys. But when all of those shows ran their course and they all had a nice lifelong course, none of them were cut short, I don't feel like the second batch was able to get back to that glory. And, you know, there were shows that started out strong that have sort of petered out. And so when I look at the landscape of TV right now, Better Call Saul, I really, really like that. That's cut from the Renaissance. I think shows like Ozark do a good job of being from the Renaissance. But pound for pound, I just feel like what we're getting now is a lot watered down. And we're in the moment of the imitators imitating the Renaissance. And I'm hoping that, you know, the players can get back into the game and show the kids how it's done.
I think that we're in a lull. And when I love lists. And so I'm constantly in my own head making my own list. What's my top 5 shows of all time? What are my top 10 favorite shows, which are not necessarily what I think are the best shows, you know, those kind of things. But when I make those lists, especially when I get to that top 5, top 10 shows, I always, it's top weighted heavy with shows from that era.
Yeah.
6 Feet Under.
Yeah.
The Wire. Things like that, where, like you said earlier, they were given the time to breathe and to develop, and nobody knew. So they could expand and be creative and go off course a little and come back around. But then in the other wave, it's almost like when Hollywood decided that everything just had to be a remake of something that was old and better.
Right.
I think the new shows, people who are creating them want to be those early shows, but they're not being given the time or the long leash that they had.
Yeah.
Because now, as you said, we've got so many more ways to watch, streaming, online, all the cable networks, even and regular networks are trying to have so much programming that if you're not successful right away, you're yanked.
Yeah.
Something could have promise, like how you and I loved Vinyl. We
Ugh.
didn't love it at first. We did not love it at first.
God damn it. Found its stride, though, around episode 7. The episode where they come out here, they come to California, and then they, it's a document. It's a movie. God damn it. Let me calm down. That one episode is like a really good indie movie. And when
it's like an Almost Famous.
Yes. It just in like an hour plus episode. And then when they get back to New York, it had found its stride. And the second part of that season, like I never knew that I could be such a fan of Ray Romano, but it got yanked because it wasn't hot and heavy out of the gate. And everybody knows the first couple episodes of The Wire, nobody was watching that, including me.
No.
I didn't find that show until it had concluded. And, it used to be like, hey, we're HBO. We need to put out something. But no, like we need to do something. But now the pressure is so intense that it has to be a hit. And even when we look at 6 Feet Under, which will go down as the greatest final episode a show's ever released. You hear the Sia? You hear that? You feel the tears?
Yep. Let's don't dwell on it because I'm already starting.
You want to go down it? You want to think about Nate in the side mirror? Objects closer than what they seem. But Alan Ball, the creator of that show, he's thrown a couple of stabs at making new shows, and even he can't get back to his glory days.
No, and I do think it's just because it's like what happens with anything. When there's a good band making a new sound, everybody wants to come along and be the A&R person that signs the next Nirvana, the next whoever.
Talking to you, Tom Zutat.
You end up with Creed and Nickelback.
Right.
Which is not even a watered-down version of what they were trying to make. So I think that's happening with TV. Where I think that it's not happening is new media, which is something that I talk about in my podcast, web series. I think web series are going to be the next thing that people are going to start over there. Like when you had a Tarantino that gets to make a movie and then all of a sudden he blows up and he's huge and 10 studios want him and he's getting a deal from here and a deal from there. The people that are making stuff on the web now are those people that were making The Sopranos and 6 Feet Under and that stuff. And I think that's going to be the next thing. But I do think that we are in a slump.
So just like when somebody goes, there's no good music, it just means that their genre has ran its course. But rest assured that every month of the calendar year, there's innovation happening somewhere in music. It might not just be the type of music that you listen to. So when you say web series, are you talking about the landscape of YouTube creators, or are you talking about like dedicated websites? Like what's a web series to you?
A web series to me is generally they are independent. There can be a production company that runs it. It's usually they're a season of episodes that may be anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes in length. Now you may say, 5 to 7 minutes, why do I want to sit down and watch that? When you string 36 episodes of that together, you've got the length of a movie. And generally they will drop them 4 to 5 episodes at a time. Like you may come in on a Wednesday and you get the first 5. You come back the following Wednesday, you get the next 5, so on and so forth. There's one particular show that is very popular in the LGBTQ community, particularly with lesbians. It's called Carmilla, and it's about lesbian vampires. Set at a mythical school in Styria, which is Austria. It sounds crazy when you start talking about it. But it's had 75 million YouTube views. That's a lot.
Which is crazy because I was just reading that Snowfall, they picked it up for a 3rd season, and it was getting about 900,000 folks to watch it per episode. And when you think about 900,000 translated in the world of YouTube, don't get me wrong, I'd shoot a brick if I hit 900,000 views. But many of the established YouTubers, they can do that standing on their head. Like they would consider, like if Casey Neistat put out a video and it only got 900,000 views after the first 2 or 3 days, he would consider that one a turd and wonder why he couldn't go past that. And for TV, that's enough to say, all right, we'll give you another 10 and we'll give you, however many millions per episode. I mean, granted, one's 7 minutes and one's 42 minutes, so it's a lot longer of a dedication. But yeah, it is wild, the innovation that's happening in this more independent format.
Right. Well, anyone with a camera and a script and some people that will act can put a series together and start a YouTube channel and put it up. And if you know how to navigate this other world, which I've become more entrenched in the past year, Twitter and YouTube combine in fandoms.
Yeah.
If you can find your footing in that fandom, it'll spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
And you can be a major content producer in no time. And then a lot of these shows end up getting, some backing from, larger companies. Like the Carmilla show that I mentioned ended up getting some corporate backing, which led to 3 seasons. Then they crowdfunded a feature film. So they put out a feature film. Now it's turning into a young adult book series coming out this fall.
Wow.
And it's in primetime development for a regular broadcast television primetime show.
Which out of all of those, I bet that's where it'll fail.
The primetime show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've yet to see anything in the independent space. It used to be that your band would play basements, then the band would play clubs, band would go on a regional tour, band would go on a national tour, the band would establish a fan base.
Yep.
But could that band get signed to a major record label and convert over? Way, way, way back in the day, Metallica was able to do that format. 10 years later, Green Day was able to do that format. But when you look at a lot of the alternative or punk bands that got signed in the 90s, very few of those bands were able to translate over when Atlantic Records or Capitol Records put up the money. There's a longer list of ones that didn't succeed than ones that did, because there's something about when it seems like this young girl comes from nowhere. Who is Britney Spears? I don't know. But this song is good, but the pigtails and the thigh highs are better.
Yes.
And A Star Is Born. There's something about with major media, people like when they feel like it came out of nowhere versus like, oh, this is a band that pulled themselves up. So it'll be interesting to see if it succeeds. But I think the real fascinating landscape is that if you're that big on YouTube and you've got that Twitter juice, you got that YouTube momentum, you don't even need network TV anymore. You got all the power, you're making the money, and you don't owe shit to anyone. It's kind of the sweetest spot to be into. When we look at the renaissance of TV, we're obviously in a new era. I just hope that the dust sort of settles, we figure out how things work, and we find a new batch of hits. Because it's like when I look at my TV watch list, I stay busy. I got something scheduled to watch every morning this week, but I'm not in love with these shows like I've been in love with the past. And it's not me waxing poetic. I know when I was watching The Sopranos that I was in love. I know the addiction that I felt during The Wire. The Deuce just came back. That first episode was pretty soft. I did not feel that first episode at all.
I agree with you. I was into it, but they've taken the time leap. I feel like we got dumped in with not enough info on what happened in between.
Yep.
And I wanted to see that struggle of Maggie Gyllenhaal's character to get to this point she's at now. We dropped her off with barely her toe in the water of adult films, and now it seems like she's very entrenched in it. I wanted to see that struggle.
She wasn't allowed to see her son, and now she's having breakfast with him at a diner.
Yeah.
What happened in this space between? I will say this about season 1 of The Deuce, though. Maggie Gyllenhaal, fantastic looking woman, great talent. Mm-hmm. They showed her naked so much in season 1 that you didn't get excited about it anymore. And I thought that was such a, I didn't. But I thought that was such an interesting move that by the end, like if you watch The Deuce like I did, where you kind of let some of them pile up and you just kind of went through them and, one after the other, the nudity wasn't arousing anymore. And I thought that they did a really good job of putting you in the world of being a sex worker, being in that industry where it's just, you're moving units and tits aren't tits anymore. They're just
desensitized.
a thing. Yeah.
Desensitized. And The Deuce was a show that I did not watch when it came out. And you and I discussed it the last time we were together, that I thought it would just get canceled and I would have my heart broken again like Vinyl. So I didn't get in. And you said, nope, it's already been renewed for 2. So I dove in and I watched that thing in a day and a half. And so I had, all of that piled up and watched the whole season together. And I think I texted you and said, "Is Maggie Gyllenhaal going for the new category of most skin shown in one season of a show?" And you were like, "Yeah, I agree." And I didn't even start to notice. I didn't notice it anymore. It just became part of the landscape of the show.
And that is a David Simon show who did The Wire. He did Treme. He did Show Me a Hero. He did Generation Kill, The Corner. The list goes on and on and on. This is a guy that makes fantastic characters. And it's like the type of TV that you watch just to hang out with your people. Mm-hmm. You don't even expect anything to happen because you just love the people. And, I was talking about how Mayans MC got me excited to feel like I was back in that Sons of Anarchy zone. The thing that I love about The Deuce in season 1 is there are a couple of episodes that opened up. It's quiet. It's a cop talking to a pimp. Two different sides of Johnny Law. But they have this conversation, they have this exchange, and there's just the silence of the city before the city revs up. And I'm like, the tone of that scene, the way that those characters spoke, the opposition, but united because everybody in this world basically is shoveling shit uphill. It felt just like The Wire. And it made me happy to just to feel the calm of what I believe is the greatest work of video art of my lifetime. I don't think anything is as good as The Wire. I don't think we'll get back to that moment of glory.
It's funny that you mentioned like the tone and the silence and the like it's almost like you could feel that as a textural thing plays into a show that I wanted to recommend to people that is over, but The Americans.
Oh, so good.
Has there ever been a quieter but yet noisy show that you've ever watched where you're immersed in that? I'm in that kitchen when Philip and Elizabeth cannot fucking even find the way to talk to each other after all that they've done together, the horrible things they've done, witnessed. They know everything about each other from top to bottom. And they're not even two people that were like in love and knew each other and wanted to get married and be together. They're thrown into a marriage that was for paper, but then became what an actual marriage is. And that was the basis of that show for me. The murders, the spy part, all of the jargon and the logistics of all that is not what that show's about.
No.
And I think people didn't want to, I don't want to watch a spy show. No, you're watching a show about a marriage and a family.
Yeah.
And you can take what happens between the two of them in this profession that they have and relate it to anything in your own relationships if you are married.
That's a great show that it's like, yeah, I understand that they're a motorcycle gang, but I understand the common thread here, the common struggle of the characters. The Americans was fantastic. I'd be envious of somebody that could sit down and start watching it tonight and just go because sometimes the pacing of it was so slow. I mean, there was things that happened and you loved the characters. You just showed up to hang out with them. But to be able to watch it hour after hour, I think that you'd realize even more how well the story is tied together. And it did this thing where they created this vibe. And even though that their family had troubles, when the family would be hanging out and mom and dad would like, oh, I was busy at the office, and they'd bring home McDonald's and they'd use an era specific McDonald's bag and packaging. And like the way that the sound of the bullshit TV was on and the phone hanging on the wall would ring, it literally made me feel like I was in 1984. Like they did such a good job of constructing the 80s. Not like, oh, look how flashy this car is. Like, but in an emotional sense, the way that we were tied together in the 80s. They did such a great job on that.
There was a weight in that house.
Yes.
And they used the things like Henry, the son, playing those video games, not paying attention to anyone else as like, that's familiar to me. I did that when I was a kid. And now as an adult, I see the conversations my parents were having that I was avoiding.
Yep.
And it's the same thing that he was doing in that. And Paige, the daughter, not being a religious kid, not raised around religion, but immersing herself in that religion. It's like what you did when you had a house that you wanted to be out of. Yeah. You found anything. It didn't matter what it was.
Anything that would give you more time away from the house. You're like, I don't give a fuck about this. I'm in it.
If I got to fucking put up with fucking Pastor Tim, I don't care. I got to go.
Dude, you're talking to a guy that went to so much VBS. That's Vacation Bible School if you're not from the South.
Dude, I went.
I would do VBS I'd do a morning shift and then I'd go back to an evening shift. Like I love Vacation Bible School because it meant cookies, Kool-Aid, and the fuck out of this house. God damn, I love getting out of that house.
In some 1970s, 80s air-conditioned plywood basement of a church.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's a quote for you. God damn, I love VBS. That's a quote that you can put on anything. You could take that one to the bank. Yeah, The Americans was really, really great. And I don't want to give away the ending, but the best use that I could ever imagine of U2.
Oh.
Right?
Let's just go say, yes, I'm going to agree with you on that. But throughout the whole show, get on Spotify and just look up the Americans soundtracks and playlists on there. You're going to be like, holy shit, I didn't even remember this song. And then you're going to love it. It's great.
I'll give you another one. If you want to love your wife more and your sticky little kids, next time that you're making dinner at home, fire up the Sonos, put on This Is Us, like all the music that they use in This Is Us, not the original soundtrack, but like just if somebody like me is a maniac and has put together a playlist of all the songs that they play, you cook dinner with that in the background, you'll love your sticky kids even more. You'll forget that they're fucking sticky and you'll just, you'll feel one as a unit because that music will bring you together. Let's get into the Circle of Trust right now where we're going to flip the script. This is the Variety Magazine part of today's show where we talk about not only the content that we love, but jumping into the ring of being a content creator. Connie, you were one of the people early on in my podcast career that sort of pulled me aside and said, you're pretty good at this. I'm enjoying listening to this. You should keep going with this. And when I turned it into a job and made the Circle of Trust, you were one of the first people to show up and be like, I will give you my $9.99 a month because I want to see this succeed. I want to see you succeed. And so when you crossed the picket line and decided to create your own podcast, Is There Gay Stuff in It? Available where fine podcasts are downloaded. I couldn't wait to help you out because I knew that, like me, you'd gone to Howard Stern University.
Yep.
Where you'd listened to radio for a long time. I also knew that you were well-versed in sports radio, but I knew that your level of fandom for content and watching TV, you were someone like myself that you just didn't see TV as great escapism, but you saw it as a sport. And you knew what a showrunner was. You know what a producer was. And you would watch seasons of thing, and just like myself, you would say, if they were smart, this is where the story goes in season 2. Damn it, they went too far ahead. Or damn it, they're going too slow. You understood the pacing of media. So when you decided to start your own podcast, I couldn't wait to help you out. And no, I would get an opportunity to do that. Even putting together the first one for you, because you're like, the audio track's drifting. I'm like, send it over to me. I'll fix it. I'll have something for you in 30 minutes, and then you can go back to editing it.
Yeah, it started off with I was on a plane ride back from Las Vegas. I had gone to a convention, LGBTQ women's media convention. And but I'd set up with my brand, Butch and Sissy, there, and we were selling. But something else happened through the whole weekend is I met some of the actors, actresses, some of the showrunners for some of these shows, people who are doing like their own gay version of Netflix, all this content. And I was like, you know what? I want to spread this. I don't think I could ever be huge at this, or I could get like, 100,000 listeners or anything like that. But I enjoy podcasting. I love it. I've loved every time that you had me and Jim on to podcast. And I was like, I don't, starting out from feeling not very comfortable behind the microphone at all to working through up and getting a little better, I think, when we've done things. And I was like, I think if I could figure out the back end of this and learn how to actually, just edit the audio, I can figure out the rest of the stuff. I'm going to ask Mark, like, what do I need to buy to sound good? Because, if I can't do something right, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
I can't sound good. We've all listened to a horrible sounding podcast and been like, ugh, this is torture. So I didn't want that. So I was like,
podcasts are so far from being professional that it's like insulting that you would think that the audience would want to listen to that. Like you have no regard. Like, hold your thought. I came up with an idea to do a new podcast series. I'm talking about this for the first time ever.
Okay.
Where I get just tons of PR requests. Here's my guests. Would you want to put them on? And I ignore them all. And I thought, what if I made a new show where I said yes to everything? And I would just do 30-minute interviews and I would tie them all together. And I would just be me, right?
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
be me. Like, I love your creative struggle. I'll help you tell the story, but I also want to bust balls. And if you've never heard of the show and you didn't know that I was busting your balls, well, then that part would be on you because you asked to be on something you had no idea what you're getting into.